What's up, y'all? It's Samson here for another episode of Changing the Story. Are you ready for your story to change? Story changers, we in the house. I'm super thankful for y'all tuning in. And the person that we are going to be talking with today is a person that is near and dear to my heart. I promise y'all that I would not be where I am today if it had not been for God allowing this man to enter my life and for our relationship to continue to grow and develop. Like it just developed me into the person I am today. And so I could say a lot about this person, but I'm gonna let this person say a little bit about themselves because I don't want to take all that. I'm just gonna let them say it. It's my boy Josh Ramirez in the house, yo.
How's it going, bro?
It's going good, man. It's going good. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have you come on and share a little bit about your story yourself. And maybe you could start off with just letting the folks know a little bit about you, who you are, where you're at, what's taking place in your life.
Oh, well, I am originally from Texas, San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. Faith has always been something very special and dear and close to my family, to myself. And yeah, I've been married for 3 years now. Gonna be
Come
going
on.
on four in November to my wife Kate. And right now, well, we knew each other from Southwestern Adventist University, where we graduated together there from the theology department.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, from there, from of course, we went on our different paths there. Still continued our friendships, and our stories are intertwined in some ways for sure. But currently, I'm at the Seventh Day Adventist Theological Seminary, full time seminary student and part-time career coach, part-time barista, and yeah, just wanting to serve the Lord as I can. Pastored for 3 years before coming here, and yeah, that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Solid. No, that's what's up, man. Thank you for sharing that. As he mentioned, we went to school together, and so we clowning up in college
Oh
to
yeah.
now we communicating the gospel to people. That's the move. And so I got some questions here that we're just going to kind of dive into and dialogue on. And so the first question that I want to ask as we're kind of jumping into all of this is, can you share a little bit about your own experience with anxiety and how it impacted your life journey? Like maybe you can start as early as you want, or maybe you can just jump straight into the experience in marriage or when you started to notice its effects.
Yeah, I mean, definitely being married, I think, um, definitely brings out some of those areas where we still need God to do work in us. But I'd say my whole life has had a overtone maybe of anxiety and fear, just maybe some of the ways that I grew up. I mentioned earlier, like faith was definitely something important, but along with that faith, there was always kind of a sense of fear in the way I related to God, and that was just really due to just some circumstances. Um, the way that my dad kind of brought up faith in us, and the relationship between my mom and my dad wasn't the best. Yeah, and there's all kinds of different things, that different moments where I've seen, oh wait, fear is kind of just taken over. There is anxiety. Going to Southwestern, I would say, is maybe one of the moments where I really started to realize, wait, there's something that I'm dealing with. um there was times where I'd be just emotionally, yeah, just emotionally maybe backed up, or emotionally, like, I don't, overwhelmed. And there was just like, what am I dealing with? Sometimes anxiety, at least for me, can be kind of hidden, kind of muted, kind of where it's just in the background. um but yeah, I say throughout my life, I've dealt with anxiety, and relational anxiety, for sure. And it's something that I've began to explore more recently,
Hmm.
and I've been able to see, yeah, how it's kind of been an overtone over my life, and now I'm like, now I think seeing that and learning about that and getting the help that is necessary, um, has definitely been able to just help me realize, wait, this is just something that I've dealt with,
Yeah.
that I still deal with, and I think realizing that and knowing that and putting a name on it, I think is just very helpful. But that's just been kind of my journey, um, with anxiety. It's always been there.
Yeah.
And then regarding relationships, I think that's kind of the area where I have some anxiety is regarding relationships, but as well, it's a place where I've found a lot of security as well. Being with my wife, like she's someone who helps just be. She's just one of like a such a foundation for me in a sense. Like we're so, um, yeah. Like I think we've just been able to grow and just help one another because we both deal with some of those things where, and we've realized, hey, like we need to lean on each other. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of been my journey with anxiety.
No, I appreciate you for sharing all that. And it's interesting because I feel like when it comes to anxiety, I sense that when it comes to like men dealing with it, it's
Hmm.
almost like there's not that permission, right? For for us to deal with our anxiety or to communicate or to talk about it or us to even express or even to think about us having that anxiety. Like even with this book that I put out that changing the story, navigating anxiety in your relationships, more women have bought this book than men. Like
Oh wow.
I probably can count, right, like on two hands how many men have been like, "Hey, I want that book." I've had so much more women who've purchased it, and I think it's almost because when guys hear anxiety, we may think to ourselves, "I don't think I deal with that." But it sounds like as you were growing up and even entering into college, there was a sense of, "I'm dealing with something. What is it?
Yeah.
What are the options that are before me?"
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you bring that up with men. I think something I've had to really look at is really what are some of the things that I believe about being a man. And honestly, that's something that has been a place of growth for me. Of what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a man of God? Um, and one of the things that I think our culture, our society, um, and I think it's going in a better direction in some ways. In some ways, I think it's going maybe the wrong direction. But and I can speak for myself. I grew up in a Latino, home, in Latin America. We call it machismo, but it's kind of just this, in a in a sense that men have to be a certain way. Men can get away with certain things because they're men. Um, and it looks different in variety of cultures for sure. But I think when it comes to anxiety, I think some of the ways that can manifest itself, and this is really just kind of from my experience, is maybe a sense of needing to control. There's a sense of, maybe need to people please, maybe to acquire. I there's a lot of people out there that are, very goal oriented, right? And that's great, right? I think we all should have different goals and different things we're working for, but anxiety can come out as workaholism, where we're always on the grind, where we can't stop and pause, so overworking. um yeah, those are some things that I definitely, people pleasing, overworking, sense of control, try those type of things come out of a place of, and this is something that I've been wrestling with, is just that it just comes out of a place of fear,
Hmm.
out of a place that, I have to control my context and what's going on. And it's tough, but I think with men, it could come out as anger. It could come out, um through just bad habits and addictions, and
Yeah.
there's all kinds of different things that, and every person is different. Every person is different. For some people it's just numbness. You're just like, and for me, I think that's something I also resonate with, is that, I figured I would always tell myself, like, man, I'm such an even keel person. I'm a person that, has is level headed all the time. But as I started to realize, I was just anxious all the time, and it was just like this low level of anxiety. So yeah, those are some of the ways that anxiety manifests itself.
Just pops up out of nowhere.
It pops out of nowhere. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you for sharing that. And I love how you was grabbing all the different variations as to ways that anxiety can manifest itself, because I sense that, if a guy's listening to this, they're like, do I? And, like now that they're thinking about it, they're like, I maybe deal with some things, because a lot of times, and I know for me, we try to find ways or methods to self-soothe that anxiousness. And so when we find ourselves riling up, it all of a sudden can push us into a space where, like, I just want to get rid of this, and we go to different places to try to ease that anxiety. And so I'm curious as to, like, as you entered into the marriage space, how did that influence the anxiety? How did that influence the moments and how you handled and getting triggered and all that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to marriage, um I I'd have to say that people pleasing and keeping a level headed, and maybe like a sense of control, was definitely something that was, especially as I got our first year of marriage. um I'd often just want to control every situation, um and kind of do it in a passive way. And it kind of sucks to admit it, but, and like Kate and I have talked about this before. um we've definitely have been having some good conversations in the last, year or so. But yeah, there's always just kind of sense of like, everything needs to be perfect
Mm-hmm.
so that my wife will be happy. you know Everything just needs to be a certain way, and as long as she's happy, like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just that, so that they're in the sense that pleasing of others, like trying to find maybe acceptance or love, so kind of working for that. And those are some of the ways it's manifested for sure, where I have to kind of catch myself and tell myself, wait, you know if Kate is mad about something, she may be mad about all kinds of different things. you know it's not my fault. Sometimes it is, and that's okay. But I think I would take everything so personally,
Yeah.
and put all the burden, on me. And that's the
Mhm.
thing, that's just not is just not realistic, right? Because we can't control everything. We can't control our spouses, we can't control our boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, we just can't control other people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we may try to control people by pleasing them, right? We may, and that's something that a lot of people, may not think about. Like, oh, this person's super nice and super, but, and there's sometimes bad motivations mixed in, into
Yeah.
into that as well. So looking back, for sure, I think that aspect of, I have to make sure things are a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to, you know, and the thing is, like, there's nothing that is not to say that, like, oh, okay, once I realize that, like, I'm not gonna do anything nice, or, like, keep up, try to keep up the house, or, do these different things. Like, I think it's seeking validation from other people is just something that just can lead us in the wrong way. And I say that just because, man, I love, like, I wish everyone liked me, And I think
Yeah.
when it comes to like your spouse, it's like, man, you really want them to be happy, but I think there's a lot of times that we may mix the motives up, and that's part of, I think that's part of my story for sure. People pleasing and just trying to control, because if things aren't right, like, man, I would tell myself like, man, I'm a failure or something.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that you bring that out because there's a chapter in the book where I talk about the hero or human, right? Like kind of like
Yeah.
this battle. And just to kind of give a little bit more depth to that chapter, I actually wrote that chapter for men, for guys.
Mm,
And one of the big reasons is because we kind of come into marriage, and one of the things they teach you is like happy wife, happy life, right? And so now you put on, that's when you put on the cape, right? At the altar where you're gonna be like, all right, I got you. I'm gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna be a knight in shining armor, and I'm gonna save the day, and I'm gonna work all this out, and I'm gonna provide for you, and I'm gonna do all this for you, and I'm gonna be the greatest I can be for you. And then we get in there with this mindset that we're the hero. And then when we come across the moment where we hurt them, or they feel like like they were hurt by something, we're thinking to ourselves, I'm trying to save you. Like I'm trying to help you. I'm
Mm,
trying to make you happy. And so what happens is we can enter into a mode of defensiveness, right? And that doesn't help us to connect with our partners. Or we can enter into a space of, if we actually did do something and we know we did something and it really hurt them, then it moves us into shame. And
yeah.
being defensive and having shame both enhance this anxiety that's on the inside of us. And those were things that I was battling, and it sounds like those are some things that you were battling as well. And I feel like it's maybe something that men tend to battle with in general.
Yeah, I think men definitely have this sense of needing to be approved. And I think it's just a human thing. This is not something that's inherently bad.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be a part of a community. That's just the way that we've been built to survive, you
Yeah.
know. And and the thing is, when we deal with shame, when we deal with these different things, like, really what's being revealed. Um and I was just reading this, maybe the other day, um out of Dan Allender's book, The Cry of the Soul. Definitely a recommend for sure. But he was talking to something about shame, that it essentially brings out what we are trusting in.
Hmm.
And in shame, whenever we deal with something that's embarrassing, whenever we deal with a shortcoming that just like exposes our shame, it's also exposing how much trust we're putting in ourselves rather than God, like our own self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
And in a sense, like, I think that's one of the big things that men deal with, is wanting to be, independent, wanting to be, self-sufficient, and wanting to be the man, and this, like, and those are all, and like, those are things that are good. Like, we want independence, like, those are good things, right? We don't, um but it goes to the level, I think, that just becomes unhealthy. And I've realized, wait, like, it's still something I'm working on for sure, but like, I need to tell my wife how I feel, just because if I don't, I know that's going to lead me to places where I don't want to be at,
Hmm.
right? And that's the thing. Isolation, like, one thing is being independent, but being in a community, right? Another thing is, like, in isolation.
Hmm.
And if you really notice, a lot of the conversations around men right now, in Christian circles and even in secular circles, is that men right now, especially young men, are some of the most isolated people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have put up these such high standards, right, about what it means to be a man. And the thing is, some people can acquire them because they have money and this and that and all these different things. Sure, like, oh, look at this guy, he's He runs his own business. He's got the nice car. He's hanging out with like these models and all these different things, and it just becomes like this like caricature, right? And that's the thing. It's like ultimately, I think culture is telling men this is what you got to do. You have to succeed in business and be cutthroat, and you have to be a certain way. But really, what it's I think one underlying narrative or one underlying implication of the narrative of our culture today, especially for men, is one of isolation.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like we're not supposed to be like that. We're not supposed to, the whole lone wolf thing. Like it's like a lot of us are, that lone isolated. We may be with our families, we may be with friends, but we're isolated, and we're trying to control these different things, and we're dealing with anxiety and all this stuff, and it's like it's terrible. It's terrible, and it just shows how much more community we need, and how much more vulnerability we need, because it's so powerful to hear someone say, "Hey, I deal with that too.
Yeah.
Hey, like I'm also struggling. Hey, like that is something so powerful." And I think we just need to move in that direction. And I think the church, that's where the church is called to what the church is called to be. But I think
Yeah.
honestly the church is bought into that narrative, and men are isolated and lonelier than ever. And that just it just it's a tough thing, but that's the reality right now.
Yeah. Nah, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. You know, towards the end of that chapter, something that I mentioned is this idea that when we see God as the savior in both our spouse's life, our life, the lives of those around us, then it gives us permission to be human,
Mm,
meaning I can make mistakes and I can still love other people through my mistakes because God is working on me, but I can also love other people through their mistakes as God is working on them. And so it almost frees us up to love just to where we are. And I feel like that plays a little bit into what you're talking about with community and having a space where we essentially give people an opportunity to love each other where they are. And instead of trying to say you got to be this and you got to be that and you got to be X, Y, and Z, it's like no, where you are, like I'm gonna love you where you are, and from that you're gonna grow. From that I'm
yeah.
gonna grow. From that we're gonna grow. And it gives me the image of I heard this story of Kobe Bryant who, when he was a kid, one of the things that his father gave to him was probably the greatest gift that he could have received that helped him to be where he was. And that was after, I guess, I don't know if it was coming back from a game or coming back from like camp of some kind, but he
Hmm.
didn't score any points, 0 points. He came back, tears, like, I didn't score any points. And his dad told him, son, I love you, whether you score 0 points or whether you score 60. And what Kobe says from that is like, that gave him the confidence to be able to be like, I can just go for the 60 because my dad's gonna love me anywhere in between. I can just go for the 60 and be comfortable and not carry shame with me as I go for it, thinking that my dad's not going to love me if I don't get the 60. And the same for like even Jesus, when he started his ministry, what is the first words he heard God tell him? Like, this is my
Mm,
beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And so I feel like having that understanding helps us to embrace community and come closer together, knowing that we can come closer together even if we're scoring 0 points,
yeah.
because that love is going to help us to grow. And so you've been a big piece in my life, like a major piece in my
Thanks, man.
life
You too,
for
bro. I feel the
for
same. Let
that.
me let me tell the world, Samson, you've been a great inspiration, brother in the journey. So thank you, man.
No, for real, for real. You definitely, yeah. It. Yeah, I could sit on here. I could do a whole podcast episode just talking about all the stories of how this man has been beneficial to me. But I want you to talk a little bit about from your journey and perspective how much community has been a benefit to you or during this whole process from maybe from as a young kid all the way up to like right now. How has community played a role? Because it sounds like it has.
Yeah, I mean, community, like we are born in community, right? From we can't run away from it. Like we're humans, right? And we could try to run away from it, but we end up just going to cheap versions of community. Like, and I think social media and all these different things have shown us maybe some of the darker sides of community, maybe some of the echo chambers and politics and all these different things. Like, we all go to a community in some sorts. Um, but I think what's been healing for me is just being part of friendships that, like, we know we love one another, but the thing is we're also all trying to go live by a higher standard, and that's been something that, like, our friendship, there's been other friends in my journey that have been so helpful to say, like, this is the way I want to live, but really this is how I'm struggling right now.
Hmm.
These are the different things. And I think even my wife has been such a awesome, um just, yeah, she's just been so awesome because I realize, like, she just loves me. I don't have to get, the best grades at the seminary. I don't need to, like, be the best pastor or this or look a certain way. Like, she loves me, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we both are like, hey, we want to continue growing. And I think that's the type of community that, like, it's tough because usually, well, like, I think there's two extremes, like two spectrums, right, of community. There's community where you're loved, um yet there is no accountability, yet there is no, hey, we're all coming together around maybe the Bible and scriptures, and this is the way we want to live by, right?
Yeah.
um but in this, there's community that stays, no, doesn't matter what you do, whatever, hey, we accept you, right? And
Yeah.
that's good in some ways, for sure. But I think there can be a lack of, yeah, just that movement toward maturity. There's a lack of that. And then there is other extremes where, okay, like the Bible and all this, and I think what's coming to my mind is like a church, right? But there could be, a type of community that is like super exclusive, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to be a certain way, you have to do this, you have to do that, and then you could be a part of it, right? So there's these two extremes, like, I don't know. I think what's coming to my mind, like, there's, you go to like a concert, right? And you get the general admission and you're in there stuck with everybody and everyone's having a good time. But then it's like, wow, you could have the VIP pass and like meet the artist or whatever. And then, like, whoa, there's two different extremes, right? Um, Going to church though, like, I think church has been, I don't know, the church, it could be something kind of like that, where there's a place where everyone's welcome and everyone's loved, and you could get hype about the sermon and what the church is putting on, the programs. But then there could also be like community where, man, you're not this, you're not that, and it's just like, you're never really involved. So there's a spectrum from something that could be very shallow on one
Yeah.
end, but on the other side, it kind of ends up being shallow as well, so the community could look in so many different ways, but I think we need something where we're welcome, we're loved, but we're also being supported toward maturity.
Yeah.
And that's something I think is missing, for a lot of people. For me, one of the major places of of community has been definitely different friendships, different, our friendship. Um, there's been different people, but one of the big things for me that has made such a huge difference is joining a what they call them pure desire groups. But it's essentially people that have dealt with like sexual addictions. For me, as someone who's dealt with pornography addiction, and I'm in my healing journey, and I've been in a group for about a year now, and it's been a place where, hey, like no matter what our story is, we've been able to just share,
Hmm.
with other men, and there is no judgment, but we're all together striving to be men of God,
Yeah.
to be men of integrity. And that's something that, like, it just needed that vulnerability of just that depth, right? But also, hey, we're moving forward, and we're
Hmm.
going to support you, and we're going to love you no matter what. And that for me has been such a healing experience for sure, in regard to community. But yeah, I think community, we can be very hurt in community, and that's something that I've dealt with. We're hurt, and we can be hurt in our marriage, we can be hurt in our families, the way we grew up. But what's counterintuitive, and kind of sucks in a way that, like, we're healed, we're hurt in community, but we're also healed in community. So I think it's about finding a place where, hey, we're loved and accepted, but hey, we want to move forward, you know.
Yeah. No, bro, you hitting it right on the head, bro. This is beautiful stuff because the image that comes to my mind is Jesus and the way he moved and operated, and it was this combination of grace and truth. And we read Meaning of Marriage
For
before we were
sure.
married. We read that just before we even met our spouses, bro. That's crazy. But we read The Meaning of Marriage, right, by Timothy Keller, where he brings up this idea of, all right, I don't remember the exact wording that he used, but there's this idea of grace and truth. And like,
Hmm.
you don't want to just be in a relationship where you let just anything and everything go. Like, but you also don't want to be in a relationship where like there's like no mercy. It's all just like, yo, this is what it is. Right. And so you want the combination of like, there is grace and we're going to continue to uplift truth and we're going to continue. It's like this, you have space to grow. It's like we're giving you room to
Yeah.
grow. And that's that beautiful combination of grace and truth.
Yeah, and we need that. We need that. We need to wrestle with grace and truth. And there's going to be moments where we have to maybe focus more on grace, and there's times where we need to focus more on truth, just depending on the situation with our community.
Oh
But you're
yeah.
right, man. It's We need to just have that mindset of Christ for sure.
No, that's awesome. Well, I just want to share one quick story before
Of
I
course,
just
man.
I just gotta share this. So if you, just for the listeners, if y'all had a chance to read the book and you saw the chapter where we talked on community and not being able to do it alone, and I talked about the counseling session and how I was in the middle of a counseling session. My counselors told me like, hey, who's a group of people that you can share your story with? And I wrote down names. I just want to let y'all know this is the first person I told. Josh, this guy, I don't even know where the camera at, right? This guy, wherever he's at. This guy's the first person I told and I shared my story with. And ever since that day in the car, I've been sharing my story with this man ever since. And so I just want to thank you so much for hopping on the pod and for sharing
Yeah.
your story and being honest and vulnerable with us. And I know
Yeah.
it's going to be a blessing to whoever listens.
Yeah. No, and I know we're coming toward the end of our time here on the podcast, but I think one thing about sharing your story that's just so important, and we've been sharing our story, and we've been, toward to one another, and just I think what ends up happening when we share our story is that we're able to reframe it in a way that is just helps us grow, because the thing is, like, we have our own point of view, and it's true, but it's not completely true, right?
Yeah.
We need someone else's perspectives. And I think whenever we share our story, like, it helps us gain a bigger perspective of reality.
Hmm.
And I think ultimately, whenever we're in a community where we see God, God gives us the ultimate story. And That's the reality, you know.
Yeah.
And if we could go back always, whenever we feel anxiety, whenever we feel these different things, these different fears, if we could lean on a friend that will tell us and encourage us with reality,
Yeah.
right? And to listen to us and to be able to share with us and help us move forward. And ultimately, if we can always remember that God is going to reveal to us the truth about our story.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we just need to come to community, and ultimately we're in the community of Christ, we're in the community of God, and the Holy Spirit, and that's our community. So yeah, Samson, thank you for having me on the podcast,
Yes,
man, and
sir.
able to share. Definitely, people got to check out your book, man. So
Hey, day by day, bro. No, I appreciate it 100%. Listen, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in. If y'all have any questions that you would like to ask Josh, feel free to let us know, and we might have to bring him back for another one. But nonetheless,
of course.
specifically, if you are a guy and you're dealing with some stories that you tell and stuff, trying to navigate anxiety, I just want to invite you to reach out to me. Anyone's welcome to reach out to me, but I'm doing a specific call for men who are struggling or dealing with whatever that they may be dealing with. Feel free to reach out because we want to connect and we want to make sure that we do our best to help you as you go on your journey of changing your story to the story that better reflects what God says about you. And so again, appreciate y'all for tuning in. That was your boy, Josh Ramirez. Appreciate you, brother.
Of course, man. Thank you.
Until next time, may God continue to bless y'all. Peace. Got to figure out how to turn it off now.